Heartwarming journey, woman discovers incredible strength to expose husband's empire of violence. In the quaint town of Maplewood, where children's laughter mingled with the sweet aroma of fresh apple pie and the American dream hung heavy in the air, Sarah was a beacon of hope. A dedicated nurse and doting mother at 37, her life was a parade of PTA meetings, family barbecues, and early shifts at the local hospital. Everything seemed perfect on the surface. But as the clouds of economic hardship loomed overhead and their neighbors clung to illusions of happiness, Sarah was unaware of the dark storm brewing within her own home. One dreary afternoon, while sorting through old family photos in the attic, Sarah stumbled upon a box that would alter the course of her life forever. Hesitant but intrigued, she opened it. Inside lay a collection of secretive messages, disturbing photographs, and dark evidence of her husband Mark's abusive behavior. Each revelation struck like a punch to her gut, unraveling years of love and loyalty. A tightness gripped her chest. How could the man she adored be capable of such horrors? Tears filled her eyes as disbelief twisted into a need for justice. Caught in a tempest of conflicting emotions, she wavered between the desire to shield her children from this truth and the imperative to confront it head-on. As the shock set in, fear echoed around her. What would happen to her family if she exposed Mark's darkness? In the days that followed, Sarah sought solace in her community, only to discover a wall of prejudice. Whispers of disbelief trailed behind her as she shared her story with a few neighbors. Worry flickered in their glances, shrouded in the fear of what confronting this reality might mean for their own carefully curated lives. But in her darkest moment, she encountered a circle of local women, moms and daughters who were drawn in by Sarah's bravery. Like a spark reigniting a faded flame, their stories of abuse and neglect ignited a newfound sisterhood. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Determined to lift the veil on hidden violence in Maplewood, Sarah rallied these women to propose a community march and outcry against the silence. But Mark's retaliation was swift and ruthless. He painted her as unstable, weaponizing their neighbors against her. Just when she thought she'd found strength in numbers, her support crumbled as whispers morphed into accusations, taking the place of friendship. As the date of the rally approached, doubt wound itself tight around Sarah's heart. Could she really expose her husband's lies? Just when hope seemed dim, an anonymous tip changed everything: a photograph. There it was, conclusive proof of Mark's guilt, illuminating the darkness that had shadowed her life. As she stood at the precipice of revelation and despair, Sarah's heart raced, and she questioned whether she could bear the weight of her vision. Would the community embrace the truth she sought, or would they turn away, afraid to confront the reality that shattered the illusions they clung to? As the crowd gathered for the rally, Sarah took a deep breath, heart pounding. She knew that the real battle was just beginning. The morning of the rally dawned gray and overcast, the heavy sky mirroring the anxiety clawing at Sarah's insides. She stood before her bathroom mirror, staring at her reflection. This was her moment. She ran her fingers through her hair, fixing it into a messy bun, nodding to herself in an effort to muster some confidence. Today, she would reclaim her voice. Today, she would no longer be a passive victim. As she slipped on a simple white t-shirt that read "Silence is not an option," Sarah felt a flutter of determination. She imagined the words echoing not just for her, but for all the women in Maplewood who felt trapped, silenced by fear. This was her fight, but it wasn't just for her. It was for every woman who had ever felt ignored and unloved. The air was thick with tension when she arrived at the town square. A modest but growing crowd gathered, their faces a mix of anticipation and worry. It wasn't just the women she had met recently, there were men holding signs, kids with painted faces, old neighbors, and friends. It was a community bursting with hope but fearful of the truth. Taking a deep breath, Sarah walked to the makeshift stage. She clutched the edge of the podium, knuckles white. The first few words felt heavy, like stones, but the support around her lent strength. As she began to speak, her voice grew firmer, each word an assertion of courage shooting through her veins. I stand here today not only for myself, she shouted, her voice slicing through the murmurs. I stand here for every woman who feels afraid, who feels alone. We will not be silent anymore. Applause erupted, echoing against the brick buildings of Maplewood. The sound was electric, mingling with the voices of solidarity that echoed back to her. Encouraged by the palpable energy, Sarah continued, sharing her story piece by piece. She felt unburdened as she spoke the words she had kept bottled up for too long. But amidst the empowerment, anxiety flickered like a candle in her mind. What would Mark think? Would he retaliate? Would he be waiting for her when she got home? Each thought was a tightening of the chest, a reminder of the weight she carried. Then came the moment, the reveal. She held up the photograph, the one that had come as an anonymous tip. With a trembling hand, she showed it to the crowd. Gasps echoed. The image depicted Mark in a moment of darkness, the stark reality of his hidden life made visible. With all the strength she could muster, Sarah cried out, "This is what has been hidden. This is why we march." Voices roared in agreement, but just as she felt the surge of hope within the crowd, she caught sight of a figure lurking at the back. It was Mark, arms crossed, face a mask of disdain and fury. Her heart raced as he advanced through the crowd like a dark cloud threatening to swallow the light. "Sarah!" he bellowed, his voice slicing through the cheers and chant of the crowd, "You don't know what you're doing." Time seemed to slow down. Sarah felt herself teetering on the edge of fear and defiance. Would he silence her again? Would her courage dissolve into chaos? The crowd fell into an uneasy silence, all eyes on her, everyone waiting for the next move. Sarah took a deep breath, remembering the strength she had found in her sisterhood. With the courage of those women behind her, she stood tall. "I do know what I'm doing," she replied, her voice steady now. "I'm exposing the truth, and I won't back down." Mark stepped closer, anger radiating from him like a storm. "You'll regret this." In that moment, as tension crackled in the air, Sarah faced the very real possibility of losing everything she knew. Her heart thundered as she wondered, would this be the last stand of a woman reclaiming her narrative, or the beginning of a battle that would change her life forever? The tension hung thick in the air, like the weight of impending rain, and Sarah felt all eyes piercing into her. Mark's presence loomed larger with each step he took toward her. In that heartbeat, every fear, every doubt, spiraled through her mind. But she grounded herself in the moment, remembering her purpose, the cause that had drawn this community together. "Mark," she said, her voice unwavering, "this isn't just about us anymore. It's bigger than you and me. This is for all the women who've suffered in silence." The crowd murmured in solidarity, their energy palpable, lifting her up when her knees felt shaky. Mark's face twisted with rage. "You think they care about your story? They don't know the truth. They don't know you." His words cut deep, and for a fleeting moment, she battled the panic rising in her chest. But Sarah steeled herself, raising the photograph high. "No, Mark. This is the truth. And you can't cover it up anymore." Emboldened, she turned to the crowd, her sisters and brothers in this fight. "We won't be pawns in someone else's game. We demand change. We demand to be heard." The roars of encouragement resounded again, filling the square with their collective spirit. Faces reflected determination, and within that crowd, she saw the faces of those she had fought for. Mothers, daughters, friends. Each one a beacon of resilience. Mark's expression darkened further. "You're making a mistake, Sarah," he warned, his voice dangerously low. "You think I won't fight back? You think this is over? And I'm done being afraid of your threats." She shot back, her heart racing, yet filled with a wild exhilaration. Fear had been her constant companion for too long, and now it felt like a distant echo. But just as Sarah braced herself for whatever Mark might do next, a powerful voice broke through all at once, shattering the current of tension. Enough. It was Nancy, the mayor, stepping up beside Sarah, a signal of unstoppable unity. You do not intimidate us, Mark. We will not be silenced by fear any longer. The crowd erupted again, cheers and clapping reverberating through the square. Sarah felt new energy wash over her. She was not alone. Nancy stood firm, a pillar of conviction beside her. This community stands with Sarah, she declared, her voice steady and clear. We will support her, and we will expose the truth until every woman knows they deserve to be heard. Mark glanced at the sea of faces around him, and for the first time, uncertainty flickered in his eyes. The community, now united and emboldened, began chanting Sarah's name, drowning out any last vestiges of his power, yet, amidst the chaos of emotions and the roar of voices, Sarah felt an unsettling thought. What would Mark do next? He had always been unpredictable, and if he felt cornered, what lengths might he go to? As if sensing her turmoil, Nancy placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder, grounding her. Breathe, Sarah. We've got your back, every step of the way, she whispered. The rally continued, but in the back of her mind, a nagging fear lingered. Would this moment mark a new beginning for herself and the women of Maplewood, or were they merely igniting a storm? As she looked at Mark's ever darker silhouette, she wondered just how far he was willing to go to reclaim control. The rally was just the start, but deep inside, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that the real battle was yet to come. Would her voice, once long silenced, now carry the weight of change? As cheers filled the square around her, she felt the adrenaline of uncertainty coursing through her veins. She was ready for whatever lay ahead. But just as she raised her fist in solidarity, she caught sight of a police car turning the corner, sirens blaring. What would happen next? The sirens wailed as the police car pulled closer, lights flashing like a beacon of authority breaking through the chaos. Sarah's heart raced, caught between hope and dread. Would they be there to protect her or to silence her? The crowd started to quiet down, a wave of uncertainty washing over them as they turned to see what would unfold. Mark's expression morphed to one of irritation, and he took a step back, his bravado faltering under the scrutiny of the law. Sarah felt a spark of determination ignite within her. This moment could either be their undoing or their liberation. She drew in a deep breath. She wouldn't let fear take the reins again. The police car came to a stop, and two officers emerged, their stances professional but cautious. One, a tall woman with kind eyes, surveyed the scene. The other, a man with a stern face, walked towards Mark, who was still simmering with rage. What is going on here? The woman asked, her voice steady, though she eyed the crowd with a mixture of authority and concern. Mark was quick to respond, pointing an accusatory finger at Sarah. She is causing a disturbance. This is all fabricated. She is trying to turn everyone against me. But Sarah wouldn't be a victim of his intimidation any longer. She stepped forward. That is not true. I came here to share the truth about how you hurt countless women. This isn't just about me anymore, it's about finding justice. A murmur rippled through the crowd, the air thick with shared anger and resolve. This was her moment, a chance to confront not just Mark, but the entire system that had allowed such abuse to fester unchecked. The female officer turned her gaze to Sarah, sensing the urgency in her voice. We've seen reports, she said carefully, but we need evidence to act. Are you ready to stand by your claims? Nodding vigorously, Sarah turned to face the crowd. I am. I have proof. And I'm not backing down. We won't allow him to control us any longer. Cheers erupted again, louder this time, reverberating through the square. Sarah glanced around at her supporters, each face filled with fierce determination. She felt a surge of pride wash over her. They were not just bystanders, they were warriors in a battle for justice. Mark's face contorted with fury, but beneath the anger, Sarah noticed something more fragile: vulnerability. Perhaps he sensed the ground shifting beneath him, the tide of public opinion turning away from him. Panic flickered in his eyes as he glanced between Sarah and the police. What do you want, Sarah? He yelled, desperation slicing through his voice. You think this will end well for you? I want the truth to come to light. I want those you've hurt to find healing, she shot back, the fire of conviction burning brightly. No more lies, no more hiding. In that moment, the officers nodded to each other, and Sarah could see their decision forming. The woman stepped forward again. Let us collect your evidence, Sarah. We'll support you in this. With a deep breath, Sarah raised the photograph in the air, unwavering. This was the turning point she had longed for. As they gathered around her, she caught sight of Mark's hands trembling at his sides. His empire had begun to crumble before her eyes, and she could feel the power shift, but just as things seemed to sway in her favor, a new thought shot through her: what if he retaliated? What if his fear turned into something more dangerous? The police were on her side now, but what about the others? With Mark's desperation, she wondered what lengths he might go to protect what was left of his crumbling facade. Determined, but tearful, Sarah stood firm. She was ready for this fight and what it meant for all those silent women watching. Yet, her heart pounded with concern: would their newfound strength be enough? As the crowd pressed closer, a single voice cut through the noise, trembling with fear. But what if he's not the only one we need to watch out for? Her stomach dropped. What did that mean? The crowd seemed to freeze, the weight of that question hanging in the air like a thunderstorm waiting to break. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. She turned to the speaker, a woman with wide, fearful eyes. What do you mean? Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The woman stepped forward, clutching a small child close to her side. He's not the only one, Sarah. There are others, people who protect him. People who might hurt you if you keep pushing. A chill ran down Sarah's spine, and she glanced briefly at Mark, who was still fuming at the edge of the gathered crowd. For a moment, his anger made him look like a cornered animal, desperate and dangerous. Are you saying his threats are backed by others? The female officer leaned in closer, her brow furrowing in concern. Yes. The woman exclaimed. Just last week I saw him with some men from the neighborhood. They were talking like he was planning something big, something that could hurt you if this goes further. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Whispers filled the space, bringing a collective tension that felt heavier than the stakes just moments before. Sarah felt her heart pound painfully in her chest. Had the network of deceit and abuse reached further than she ever imagined? Mark caught her eye, and for a brief second, she saw not just fury, but something else too: fear. That flicker made her question everything. Was he really as powerful as he pretended to be, or was he merely a puppet grasping at threads of control? Sarah turned back to the crowd, her voice shaking yet determined. We can't let fear silence us. This is exactly what they want to intimidate us into submission. But together, we can stand against it. The crowd erupted in cheers again, a bit more hesitant than before, but still loud enough to shake the ground. The doubts lingered, but so did hope. And for Sarah, that was a step forward. The police officers exchanged glances. We need to take her evidence now, before things get out of hand, the male officer stated, his voice firm yet steady. Let us go, Sarah, the female officer urged, and with a nod, Sarah took a deep breath, desperate for the safety that the police represented. As she turned, a shouting match broke out between Mark and the man with him, a thug-like figure Sarah recognized from previous incidents. The man was angry, pacing back and forth, eyes darting around the crowd. He caught sight of Sarah. Keep your mouth shut. He yelled, his voice cutting sharp through the noise. You have no idea what you're getting into. Marked by terror, the crowd paused, but Sarah felt a surge of something far more powerful than fear: anger. You can't silence me anymore. She shouted back. This isn't just about me, it's about every woman too afraid to speak. A ripple swept through the crowd, emboldening others. Hands shot up, offering support, voices rising in unity against the threats. In that moment, something changed. It was as if the air had thickened with resolve, turning pushback into a collective force. They were fighters now, not just witnesses, standing up to the shadows that haunted so many, but just as that power surged, another voice grew louder in Sarah's mind, a warning. What if Mark and his allies had plans that went beyond threats? What if they would retaliate in ways she couldn't foresee? Listen to me, Sarah said, catching everyone's attention again. We need a plan. We need to stay safe. We can't let them take us down now. As the crowd quieted down, focused on her once again, Sarah felt the gravity of her words sink in. Would they be ready for the storm that was brewing? A ripple of whispers swept through the crowd as they began to strategize, voices overlapping with concern. Amid the chaos, Sarah's eyes darted back to Mark, who was now watching closely, his expression a mix of fury and confusion. She couldn't shake the feeling that the battle wasn't just against him. Something much darker loomed behind the scenes. What else lay hidden in the shadows, just waiting to be unleashed? The crowd's excitement was palpable, yet an undercurrent of fear tugged at Sarah's heart. She could feel the adrenaline coursing through her veins, a blend of hope and dread. As people around her started discussing their next move, their faces lit with determination, she couldn't ignore the uncertainty that loomed over them. Please. She raised her voice, ensuring every eye was on her. We need to figure out what those men are planning. If they're plotting something big, we have to be one step ahead. The hum of discussion quieted to a hush as they listened, each person sensing the gravity of her words. The woman with the child stepped forward again. But how? Shielding our homes? If they know we're onto them, they could retaliate first. Sarah noticed the deep furrows on her forehead, reflecting the fear that resonated in many hearts. An older man, his voice shaky but assertive, chimed in, we need to look out for each other. Form a network. If we know where one of us is in danger, we can mobilize. There was a collective nod of agreement, and Sarah felt the spark of solidarity. Exactly. She replied, feeling the momentum build. We could set weekly meetings, key spots where we can all gather, discuss strategies, and share intel. Together, we're stronger. They can't control us if we're united. The crowd responded with murmurs of approval, a rising tide of enthusiasm. Hope flared brightly as they began to plan. But in the back of Sarah's mind, Mark's warning echoed ominously. Was the foundation they were building strong enough to withstand the storm? Suddenly, she caught a glimpse of Mark, looming at the edge of the crowd, arms crossed defensively. His jaw was tight, and his eyes darted from her to the group, calculating. A shiver of fear rasped over her skin. She couldn't forget the way he had unleashed his anger in the past, the way he could go from charming to terrifying in an instant. What's happening? Mark's voice cut through the hopeful atmosphere like a knife. You think some little meetings are going to save you? His tone was mocking, infused with sarcasm that set the crowd on edge. Silence wrapped around them, chilling the air. I'm watching you all, he continued, stepping forward, the thug beside him waiting for a signal. Don't forget the real world out there. It will squash you without a second thought. Mark. Sarah called out, her heart pounding against her ribcage. You're not scaring us. We're done cowering. Take a look around. This isn't just about me anymore. The determination in her words surprised her. Where had this fierce core come from? Watch your back, he warned quietly, his eyes narrowing. You have no idea who you're dealing with. With that, he turned, the man beside him following suit, walking away but leaving a palpable tension behind. Sarah felt the crowd tensing, uncertainty seeping back in. Yet, she couldn't let fear dampen the resolve they had built. Focus. She urged, her voice ringing with conviction. We won't let his words break us. We're standing together now, and together we are stronger. As voices rose again in support, a wave of power washed over Sarah. She hadn't just faced Mark, she had looked fear directly in its eyes and pushed back, but in the recesses of her thoughts, doubt crept in once more. How far would Mark go to silence them? What alliances did he have? Were they prepared for the war that was about to unfold? The crowd reinvigorated, strategizing and discussing the road ahead, but Sarah couldn't shake the growing urgency in her gut. They were on the brink of something significant, yet the shadows of Mark's world were drawing closer, lurking just beneath the surface. As the meeting continued, whispers of doubt clawed at her, and a painful thought circled in her mind. Just how far would she have to go to protect those she had rallied? Would she have the courage to see it through, or would the shadows claim her once and for all? As the meeting wore on, Sarah felt the energy shift. There was enthusiasm, sure, but it was tinged with a heaviness that made her heart ache. The cheers of support all blended into a low murmur, and she couldn't shake the feeling that Mark's warning hung over them like a dark cloud, threatening to burst. "Let us go over the plan one more time," she suggested, trying to redirect the group's energy. "We need everyone to be clear on their roles. If we're going to stand up to Mark and his crew, we can't leave anything to chance." The crowd began to organize themselves. People broke into small groups, discussing ideas and strategies. Sarah listened to snippets of their conversations, careful to absorb every detail. Someone mentioned gathering intelligence about Mark's activities, while others talked about reinforcing their homes. Each idea was like an ember, burning brightly with potential, but still, shadows loomed. Sarah whispered a voice from behind her. She turned to find Claire, the woman with the child, looking anxious. "Are we really ready for this? I mean, what if we provoke them into acting sooner than we expect?" Sarah placed a comforting hand on Claire's shoulder. "I understand your fear. But if we stay silent, they'll just keep tightening their grip on us. We have to act. The longer we wait, the stronger they grow." Claire nodded slowly, but uncertainty still danced in her eyes. It was as if Sarah could feel the weight of every fear and doubt in the air. She glanced around the group, taking in every face, each filled with determination but also a flicker of doubt. Suddenly, a sharp shout broke their deliberation. From the edge of the park, Jake, a local teenager known for his rebellious spirit, burst through the crowd. "They're coming!" He gasped, a wild look in his eyes. Panic spread like wildfire. Faces turned white, breath caught, worry resonated through murmurs. Sarah's heart raced. "Who? What do you mean?" "They're just down the street. I saw them. Mark and his crew. They're armed." Jake's voice cracked, but the urgency drew her in, tethering her every instinct to action. "Everyone, listen," Sarah commanded, raising her voice above the rising tide of anxiety. "We need to get ready. This could be our chance. We can't let fear dictate our actions. To those of you with children, take them home. The rest of us need to stand our ground." A collective breath was taken, nerves visible but determination starting to re-emerge. Sarah could see that flicker of bravery igniting in those around her. They didn't have the luxury to run, they had to fight for what they believed in. "Stay low, stay quiet," she urged. "If they're on their way, we need to alert the others to ensure our safety. Find allies in the crowd. We can protect each other." As if on cue, she spotted a few familiar faces peering from behind trees and cars. They were part of their growing network, but doubts loomed again in her mind. Were they ready for confrontation? The weight of responsibility settled heavily on her shoulders. Sarah took a deep breath, stepping forward, grounding herself in the moment. "We're not alone," she shouted, her voice stronger than before. "Whatever happens, we stand together. We fight as one." The crowd echoed her resolve, but deep within, another fear niggled at her. Could they really face this threat? What if this was the turning point that spiraled them back into darkness? She looked around, absorbing the strength of the community surrounding her. "Let us move. Together." But as they prepared to face whatever awaited them, one chilling question hovered in the air: how deep did Mark's influence run, and what would happen when the storm finally arrived? As they took their positions, adrenaline coursing through her, Sarah couldn't shake the thought, would they emerge intact or become another casualty of the chaos? The air felt electric, charged with anticipation and fear. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest like a wild drum as she scanned the group, each face a mixture of resolve and terror. The shouts of children playing in the distance, once a familiar comfort, now seemed far away like echoes from another world. "Assess the surroundings," she shouted, trying to maintain her grip on the chaos swirling around them. She motioned for people to spread out, eyes peeled for any sign of movement from the street where Mark's crew was supposedly approaching. It felt surreal, like stepping into a low-budget action film. Yet, here they were, everyone dependent on courage, every second laden with consequence. Jake stood off to the side, shifting from foot to foot, uncertainty written across his youthful features. "Sarah, what if they don't just come for a fight? What if they plan to hurt us?" "Jake, listen," she said gently, stepping closer. "If we show them we're united, we can intimidate them. Fear is a weapon, let us not hand it to them easily." He swallowed hard, determination wavering in his gaze, but he nodded stiffly. Sarah turned her attention back to the gathered crowd. Her voice, carrying both strength and sincerity, reverberated through the evening air. "This isn't just about us. It's for our families, our homes. We owe it to each other to fight back." The murmurs quieted as she spoke, faces lifting, a collective spirit building in the soft twilight. Suddenly, a low rumble echoed down the street, tires crunching on gravel. Sarah's stomach twisted into knots. Her intuition screamed they were coming. She motioned for the group to drop lower, using makeshift cover from benches and trees. They needed to be ready, her mind raced with the plan, confront them, but strategically. They weren't equipped for an outright brawl, they needed to outsmart Mark and his gang. "Okay, everyone. On my signal, we make noise, shout, yell, use what you have." She scanned the small arsenal they had at their disposal, sticks, rocks, sheer willpower. "We'll create a barrier to block the road. They won't expect it." "Are we really gonna confront them?" Claire asked, her voice shaking. "Yes. If we show we're not afraid, it might just deter them. Look at us together, this is our shot to reclaim what's ours." As the rumbling intensified, the headlights of a truck pierced through the trees. Andrew, a local contractor with a thick beard, stepped closer to her side. "You have a plan, Sarah?" She took a deep breath. "Distract them, create confusion. We need to let them know we're not their easy targets anymore." With a swift hand gesture, Sarah rallied the group. Hearts pounding, eyes aflame with resolve, they poised themselves. Pumped up and on edge, her feet felt practically glued to the ground, adrenaline coursing through every fiber of her being. The truck slowed, headlights sweeping across the park as forms began to exit. They were bulky figures, shadows cast in the dim light. Sarah's throat tightened. This was at the moment of truth. Were they truly ready, but would their united front be enough to stand against armed aggression? Doubts swirled in her mind, but she pushed them aside. They had to fight for their corner of the world, and she needed to lead by example. Then, out of the darkness, one of the figures turned, locking eyes with Sarah. It was Mark, a sneer curling his lips. "So, you decided to play hero?" he shouted, confidence dripping from every word. In that heartbeat, something deep within Sarah shifted. She wasn't just fighting against him, she was fighting for her community, for the future. And the question hung heavy, would this confrontation mark the beginning of their resistance, or would they find themselves caught in a storm they weren't prepared for? Mark stepped forward, swaggering like he owned the place, and as he did, Sarah felt a fire ignite within her. She wasn't backtracking, she would meet him head-on. This wasn't just about her anymore. She took a step out from behind the cover of the bench, arms at her sides like a shield, drawing breath deeply into her lungs. "Enough games, Mark," she said, attempting to keep her voice steady. "This is our neighborhood, not your playground." The group behind her seemed to gain courage from her words, shifting closer together, their shadows mingling under the streetlights. Sarah noticed Jesse, a father of 3, clutching a stick like it was an extension of himself, and Claire whispering something to Jake, who nodded, finally catching the fire she hoped would spread through them all. Mark chuckled, a low, menacing sound that echoed through the heavy tension. "What do you think you're going to do? Play pretend? You're outmatched." His crew loomed behind him, grim faces and hardened stances. The unease in the crowd rose like a fog, thickening the air. But Sarah's heart was steady. She had no intention of allowing fear to define this moment. She needed them all to feel that this was the time to dig deep. "Enough of your threats," Sarah shouted, her voice ringing clear. "We stand together, and we stand strong. You might think you instill fear, but look at us. We're not just a bunch of easy targets anymore." Mark's expression faltered for the briefest moment, and in that instant, Sarah saw the flicker of doubt. Maybe he had underestimated them. "Go on then," he challenged, sneering. "What do you hope to achieve here? A round of applause for your little pep talk?" "More than that," Sarah replied, feeling confidence surging as she gestured to the crowd behind her. "We want our community back. We stand for each other, for our families." In that moment, a chorus of voices rose up, echoing Sarah's sentiment. "Together. Together." It was infectious, sweeping through the crowd like a cascading wave. Arms raised, a show of unity, bright and vibrant against the darkening sky. The absurdity of the situation was not lost on Sarah the way they stood bravely against a group that represented chaos, desperation, and violence. But the resilience in her neighbors was intoxicating. It lifted her spirit to dizzying heights. As if sensing the shift, Mark paused, his confident facade cracking. "You think this little show is going to scare me?" He pointed a gloved finger at her. "You really don't know what you're up against. We know what we're standing for." Sarah responded without wavering. "And that's more powerful than any weapon you can bring." The air between them felt charged and electric, a storm brewing with consequences that could shift everything. If they pushed forward, they could gain ground. If they faltered, it could mean disaster. With one last glance at her neighbors, she knew it was time to take a risk. "Now!" she yelled, and they surged forward, sticks raised, hearts pounding in unison. The sound of clattering and shouting filled the air, but the question lingered: would this act of defiance be the turning point, or would it plunge them all into a chaos they weren't prepared for? As they rushed forward, Sarah's mind raced, knowing they were at the cusp of a fight that had the power to change everything. And in the depths of her being, she felt a glimmer of hope. Would it be enough? In the charged atmosphere of that confrontational moment, Sarah felt her heart race, a mix of adrenaline and fear dancing within her. They surged forward, determination fueling every step. The crowd was a living, breathing organism, united against the darkness looming before them. Mark's facade of confidence began to crumble. Their chant echoed through abandoned neighborhoods, and the unity gave Sarah strength. She realized it wasn't just about her anymore. It was about breaking the silence, challenging the storm, and igniting the fire of change. "Keep pushing," she cried. "This is our community, our children. We won't let fear silence us any longer." The rallying call spurred her neighbors on, voices filled with courage rising like smoke towards the dimming sky. They wielded sticks like heroic weapons, but more importantly, they had something deeper: hope. Mark flinched, but he rallied again, anger twisting his face. "You're playing a dangerous game, Sarah. You'll regret this." His words hung heavily in the air, but Sarah shook off the doubt, her heart aflame with purpose. "The only thing I regret is not acting sooner. You are not our master, you are not our keeper." Glimmers of fear danced across the faces of those behind her, and she pressed on, caught between the desire to instill courage and the need to remain steady amid the tempest of emotions surging around her. Then the crowd surged, a wave of bodies charging forward, buoyed by Sarah's strength. And in that moment, they were not just fighting against Mark, they were pushing against a tide of systemic abuse, a call to arms for every woman and child who had ever felt powerless. The roar of their voices blended with an electric crackle in the air, igniting a flickering hope that was contagious. They could feel it, their collective strength was undeniable. "Stay together!" Sarah shouted over the chaos. "If we stick as one, they can't break us." And then, just as the storm rumbled ominously above, Mark's gang faltered. Sarah saw hesitation in their eyes, they could sense the tide turning. "Retreat!" Mark barked, fear oozing through his bravado. With a desperate glance back, he led his crew away, marching towards the shadows from whence they came. A collective exhale escaped the crowd, relief flooding their veins even as uncertainty lingered. They shared bewildered glances, a moment of disbelief at what had just unfolded. Victory? Or just the first step of many? Sarah turned, breathing heavily, sweat glistening on her brow. "We did it! They're retreating!" A cheer rose in response, voices of determination echoing in the chill of the evening. They had faced the storm and had emerged not just alive, but transformed. A collective familial strength had anchored them against the tide of fear. "That was incredible!" Claire exclaimed, her face a mixture of awe and disbelief. But amidst the cheers, a shadow crossed Sarah's heart. She couldn't forget Mark's words, his threats still lingered like a bad taste in her mouth. "This isn't over," she warned, trying to ground them amidst the excitement. "They'll regroup and come back smarter, but we've taken the first step. We're building something real here. We will create a support system. For all of us." And right then, in the heart of Maplewood, a realization washed over her, a shift. It wasn't just about fighting back anymore. It was about healing together, sharing stories, and creating a community that would stand firm against abuse. With children clinging to mothers, grandparents cheering on their kin, Sarah smiled. She saw shining faces illuminated with hope. The battle had only begun, but today they had triumphed, and that triumph mattered. More than anything, it was a testament to the collective force of love, healing, and resilience. "Let us keep our voices strong, together!" Sarah shouted, and they echoed it back, a sea of hearts united, ready for whatever may come. As they began to disperse, laughter broke out, blending with relief. It was a far cry from the oppression that once shrouded their lives. And in that moment, as Sarah walked home, she felt lighter than she had in years. This wasn't just a fight, it was the beginning of rewriting the narrative for the women in their town. A journey toward healing lay ahead, a luminous path filled with new stories waiting to be told. Today, they had faced the storm. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but they would rise again, armed not just with courage but with a community bound by love, fiercely committed to overcoming violence. Victory wasn't defined by moments, it was stitched together with resolve and the unwavering spirit to protect one another. And their journey would continue, one step at a time. If you're inspired by Sarah's journey toward reclaiming her voice, you need to subscribe now to stay tuned for more heartwarming transformations and incredible stories. This is the moment to show your support. So drop a like to feed the algorithm and keep these stories alive. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this courageous fight. And please, share this video immediately with at least 5 friends who could use a dose of inspiration. The world needs more stories like Sarah's. Don't wait not even one more second to spread this message of strength and solidarity.